Right, back live tonight here on In Focus. Political party ATM calling on the acting public protector to hold the president to account, saying there is clear evidence against him over the Phala Phala burglary. The party submitted a 90-page response to the public protector's interim report. For more on this, we're joined by ATM spokesperson Zama Ntshona. Zama, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. According to the leaked confidential report from the Office of the Public Protector, which we, the public, were not necessarily supposed to be having, but it was leaked. You, of course, as a party in this particular matter, were given that report in order for you to respond to it. But we're told that this report says the allegations that the president failed to report a crime of housebreaking with any ill intent were unsubstantiated, saying the allegation that President did not report the crime that took place in his Phala Phala home are not substantiated because he reported that to the protection services, who, they are said, are the ones who, by deploying themselves to investigate this particular matter, actually acted improperly. How did you respond to that?
Thank you so much. Good evening to you and the viewers. As the African Transformation Movement, it is truly disappointing first, we must say, that we find ourselves in a predicament. We have our hands tied behind our back with the number of leakages that are happening from the Public Protector's Office. We're not saying who, what, but it is concerning because now we find ourselves prohibited by law to actually fully engage. And now you must understand that we are the complainant on the matter, and we have a lot to say about the matter. Now, this is a challenge. But I was just going past that so that I echo the sentiments that you have said earlier on, but it is truly disappointing that we find ourselves in this predicament. But having said that, there is the same issues that we have brought in front of the public protector, the same issues which we took to the Section 89 independent panel. You would remember that there were 4 issues, and that particular panel, in our view, as the African Transformation Movement, is the closest to, in fact, actually moved very close to the issues that we raised in the African Transformation Movement. On the issue of paid work, it is very important when we look into that particular issue that we look at the issue that the president on this matter did not only disclose as an individual who is actually undertaking or he is participating in other paid work, but it is important for us to look at the admissions of the president as we're looking into this. And the African Transformation Movement believes that the prima facie evidence which was actually brought forth or which was seen and established by the independent panel as an issue that must be taken into cognizance. Also, the issue of the admission itself, which is not only limited to I am a farmer, I sell animals, but when it goes further to say some of you here are actually my clients, this becomes very pivotal if we are to look at the violations of the president on this matter. But also the issue of definition. If you look at the Section 89 committee, it dismisses the narrow definition of an employer-employee. And it says you need to extend the definition because in the case at hand, you have a close cooperation with a member. The sole owner of this particular close cooperation is the president himself. Now, can you then say that the profits that would be gotten by this particular entity are not of benefit to the president? And how is the president going to discourage members of the cabinet from receiving other paid work and when the president would be able to get paid work as well? In fact, let's take this a little further because we also speak of the issue of conflict of interest. But now the bar, as according to law, is set very low. It does not only speak of a fully blown conflict of interest, but it actually speaks to this issue of even when interest is perceived, the conflict of interest is perceived, where there is a potential to actually have that. I'll make an example. In the event that maybe, as we all know, as per widely publicized reports, that the animals in question were not actually transported to the businessmen in question. Let's say there is an outbreak that prohibits the transportation of these animals from one country to the other. Now the president must make a decision as an individual who has already received the money. He must make a decision that there must be a proclamation that bans the transportation of. Now, the law actually says even in cases where the risk is not fully blown, but the risk is seen as something that could come in the near future, it is enough for us to say there is a potential risk and therefore the president should not be embarking on this particular issue. The third issue, the issue of the tracker. Now you would remember that Section 34, subsection 1 talks about reporting and mentions theft, but go further. Go to Section 34, subsection 4E, where it says the onus of reporting lies with the member of the close corporation. Now, how is it that we can find differently when the law is very clear on this matter? And now, take this into consideration, that the little arrangements they may have amongst each other do not nullify the laws of this country.
Yeah.
The laws of this country reign supreme.
Yeah.
And the president cannot come and say it was supposed to be somebody else who actually did this and this individual did not do it. No. Section 34, subsection 4E is very clear and places the onus and the duty on the one who owns. And who owns? It is the president.
Yeah.
So this is very important.
So you still believe, firstly, that the evidence that you submitted should be enough to indicate that the president and his financial interest in the game farm exposed him to conflict of interest, to which the leaked report, again, a very complicated conversation we are having, because we are talking of a leaked report here that we cannot bring really fully onto the conversation until it is an official report that is out there. But the leaked report seemed to say that is unsubstantiated. In fact, that the president's interests were declared in the National Assembly. How do you further argue that particular case?
It is very difficult. In fact, it is very easy. The difficult one is that we have to argue or discuss this particular report without discussing the report. But I want us to come to this issue. You have clear admissions here, and you have clear laws here. And there is no way that when the president says, I am a farmer, I sell animals, and some of you here are my clients, how do you come to a conclusion contrary to the findings of the Section 89 committee, which is specific on the matter, on that there is prima facie evidence for the president to answer? There is a confession. How do you arrive at a conclusion different? Let's come to this issue. Section 34, subsection 4E, which is very clear as well. This particular section is saying the onus or the duty of reporting is on the member of the closed corporation. Now, how do you find differently? How do you not find enough evidence to such? When the president has not reported, it can only mean one thing, that the member must take responsibility for not reporting, because the arrangements are not the arrangements which the law specifies that they must be followed. The law is very clear. You, as the principal member, as the owner, must do the reporting. So this issue of there is not enough, there is a narrow definition, there's an extended definition, and therefore the president can actually, no, it can't. The Section 89 committee, this is why the African Transformation Movement would always go back to the three volumes of the Section 89 committee, where it says, not only does the law specify that we must do A, B, C, and D, but it goes further to say the laws of this country prescribe the manner in which things must actually be done.
Yeah. What about the members of the South African Police Service who we've had some kind of adverse findings according to the report. That is the Major General as well as the Sergeant.
You would remember that also the African Transformation Movement had written to IPED saying there is a lot that we're beginning to see that we believe that it is not consistent with the conduct of the ministry. And the African Transformation Movement on that matter stays with its initial submission to IPED that any police that has assisted in the issue of the concealing of this particular these violations and other crime, those police must be brought to book. Now, you would remember that I know not of the findings. Because of that, I cannot talk about them right here. So, but the principle, we must stay on the principle. The principle that we bring forth as the African Transformation Movement is that any individual who's found of wrongdoing, that individual must actually answer. But that does not nullify what the president ought to do. The fact that these members are found to have done wrong does not substitute the duty of the owner of the facility, does not substitute what the owner of the facility, knowingly, you remember in 2014 the president had written a letter showing us that he knows that there is an Executive Members Ethics Act, and knowing that it is Section 96, and knowing that he may be in violation of it. He says in that letter, I will create just forgot the name now, but it will come to me. But he will create a blind trust. That's what I'm looking for. I'll create a blind trust which will take care of my businesses. Now, when he did not do that, we cannot say by virtue of the policemen who are found guilty, potentially, and then we say he is then exempted from his wrongdoings. We can't.
As far as you're concerned, if the public protector finds any other finding other than guilty, then the public protector would be protecting the president. Why do you have to believe that the public protector is not acting independently?
As the African Transformation Movement, we have believed, because also the arguments brought forth by the African Transformation Movement are based not on what is suitable for the politics of this country. It is not a popularism stance. It is on the basis of law. Now, it will be interesting that we have a public protector, an individual who is supposed to protect us as the representative, as the people and the citizens of this country, who is not going to use law to actually interpret. And the Section 89 findings are also a confirmation that on the basis of law, this is why I want us, whenever we're discussing this issue, we go on what does the law in this country say. So if a public protector finds differently, it is going to be very interesting. Which laws is the public protector using? Which interpretation? What did the public protector use to get to her findings? And we are hoping that as the African Transformation Movement, that her extensions that she has granted the president without informing us in the past will not be a factor. We are hoping that the sluggish behavior that we have seen with this case, though we had said Section 3, Subsection 2 of the Executive Members Ethics Act should have directed the public protector as given, we actually raised this issue with the public protector, that this report should have been with us within 30 days from the issuing or from us raising this particular issue. We would for now say we are hoping that all those things that were happening are not going to be things that we can, when we look in retrospect, and say, no, it is evident that this kind of behavior was leading to a particular narrative.
The Section 89 report itself is still a product of our courts. Yes, it was struck off in terms of entry to the Crown Court and was sent down to the lower courts, but it's something that would still be debated in our courts quite extensively, would it not? So we cannot conclude to say the Section 89 report would be the final word on the matter at this point.
No, it is not the report itself that was set aside. It is the interest of the president to set aside the report.
Yes, hence I'm saying the report is still going to be debated in the lower courts. I understand that fully. The president sought to gain access to the High Court and to have this matter discussed. Then the court said, no, you've got to go back to the lower courts, and that's where it must still go.
Yes, but as things stand right now, that report stands.
I understand that. What I'm saying to you, but it matters, and the president is taking it on review, which is part of the processes that needs to happen. So it will still be deliberated upon in our courts.
Yes, granted, but not until there is a final pronouncement on that particular report. The report stands.
Concede, I agree with you fully. What I'm saying is that the outcomes of the court could bring us into a different conclusion. And therefore, what would make ATM believe that when the public protector comes to a different conclusion, she is wrong and therefore protecting the president?
On the issues that I've raised so far, one would have to convince the African Transformation Movement that why would a president make a public confession and that would be disregarded? And that would actually be perceived as a non-factor. One would have to convince the African Transformation Movement of how else can you actually interpret Section 34, subsection 4E on the issue of the onus or the duty of reporting that is placed on the member. You would have to convince us otherwise. But as we are standing right now, any other finding that is not based on the law, as far as we are concerned, it is an illegitimate finding. The only way we can come to a conclusion or anyone try to convince us otherwise, it would be on the basis of being able to nullify the glaring admissions of the president and also the laws in place which suggest that as we stand, the president has made serious violations.
I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on tonight. That Zama Ntshona speaking on behalf of the ATM there.